Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. We are here talking all things inner work, which we call the beautiful work, and we are inviting you to call the beautiful work with us because we know, having spent years doing inner work and the beautiful results that come from that it is beautiful work. So we are, just to give you a little context before I invite my co-host in here with me, we are first airing this in the month of December of 2023. So if you're listening to it at another time, that's a little context for you. And our topic for this month's podcast is loving self-kindness. And our topic today is the gift of loving self-kindness. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about what that is. And we're also going to invite you into the experience of enjoying it with us in an immediate kind of way. So we look forward to doing that on the podcast today. I would love to reintroduce my dear co-host, Laurel. We happen to have the same name. We met on Instagram because we have the same name. She caught my eye. She and I followed one another, and I started reading her posts, and I immediately felt loving self-kindness from this beautiful woman. And she was so, I want to say, not exactly resistant, but maybe a little reluctant to join me in the podcast world when I decided I wanted to do a podcast. And I just want to thank you, Laurel, for saying yes when you did and being here to be on this journey with me, because it's been so rewarding to do this with you. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. And I have so much to say about that. Reluctant was the word, resistance. And we have a podcast episode about resistance.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll drop that in the show notes. But, sometimes we think what we want or need in life, like that's up to us. Sometimes we don't even know that gifts come our way and they're meant for us. And so you, my friend, were that gift for me. I so welcome you in my life.
Thank you. Thank you.
And can I say one more thing about inviting our listeners, right? I mean, we've done this beautiful work for years.
Yeah.
But we're still doing the beautiful work.
Always doing the beautiful work.
So we not only invite our listeners to listen to our conversations about the beautiful work and listen to the examples that we might have lived in the past of our own beautiful work, but to continue doing the beautiful work with us, like stay with us, even if you're reluctant at times, because it is the path to a beautiful life.
It is. And the gifts will come in time. They will come. So you have to just trust the process as well, which was one of my beautiful stones that I had gifted to me by one of my clients, because we used to say it all the time, trust the process. And, once you begin your path into self-discovery and doing your inner work or your beautiful work, you have to let go a little bit and trust in the steps forward, because sometimes they're uncomfortable and sometimes you don't know where they're going to lead, but you feel compelled to do it, and you just have to let go and go forward. And there's always something on the other side, whether it's a learning lesson that's really potent, or whether it's an opening portal to a new beginning that you had no idea was there. You just don't know. Yeah.
I feel like you're talking to me.
Oh,
right now.
Maybe.
Thank you again.
Not meaning to, but you know how these things go. Sometimes we just
to
say
our
things,
listeners.
and that's right.
To our listeners, I am learning that trust that Laurel is talking about. So stick with me. Hang on tight. We're in for a ride.
We are.
All right.
So today's ride is going to be lovely and gentle. If you are driving in your car, or you happen to be, I don't know, preparing a meal or working on a report for the office, whatever you're doing, I would say do your best to be with us in this 20 minutes to come, to really allow yourself maybe to sensually feel a little bit of loving self-kindness in the moment, because it is a gift and there is a pathway to actually experience it. And the beginning, if you don't know what it feels like to feel loving self-kindness, it is really quite lovely. It's, I would say, good medicine for all of us, most of us in our lives. And it is, it's such a healing balm in terms of what the world could use right now. So if you can be a source of that, right? Learn how to get into that space of loving self-kindness. You invite other people into that space and you can be beautiful light in the world today. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to talk about how to begin that process because, for me, it wasn't second nature, right?
Yeah.
It was a practice I had to intentionally, deliberately practice.
Yes.
Which is interesting because we so often treat other people with loving self-kindness, right? Or loving kindness. When I think about the way we treat animals now, we all have our favorite pets. And we all even, I'll say, treat animals in the wild with kindness, right? And birds, putting a bird feeder out is simply to treat those birds with kindness.
Yeah.
And how is it we do that for other living beings, but it doesn't come easy when we need to do it for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a practice. So I feel like, when you go back through maybe the history of our podcast, you'll see that we have multiple shows on working with judgment, working with resistance, working with self-criticism. And so this practice of loving self-kindness is really the ultimate goal, right, of being able to work with self-criticism, judgment, all of these things that really they break down our confidence, they take away our confidence, and they probably connect us to a sense of self that has a really hard time going out in the world and embracing life and the things that we really want. And so in order to really come back to that space where you embrace life fully and you go after what you want and you connect with what you really deeply want, this is a great foundational practice to begin and to adopt and to really practice on the regular if you're really going to transform. I mean, if you're really going to transform into a person that feels like, wow, I'm here to live a full life and I want, these things are what are pulsing in my being and in my heart, and I want to move towards them. And in order to do that, you have to have a foundation that somewhere inside you says, yeah, go for it. You're worthy of that. You go for it. Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up the word worthy, because as you were speaking, that word kept coming into my mind. Right. And I think one of the things I needed to do as I started to treat myself with loving self-kindness was put the question of worthy out of the equation.
Yeah.
Worthy is not where I need to be judging at this point. Right. It's not, am I worthy? It's, do I want? Right.
Yeah.
How do I want to feel? Right.
Yeah.
How can I be more gentle and loving with myself?
Yeah.
And I, this early on in the podcast, I used the word grace a lot, right? When I think about treating myself with grace, that's to me where I started, like giving myself the grace. That's the languaging I started to use when I started to learn how to bring some loving self-kindness into my world.
Laurel, why did those words resonate with you? Can you share a little bit about that for our listener, that those words are pinging in them and or not pinging in them even, like what was it that helped you in that? Yeah.
So, when I think about the word of giving someone grace, when I think about giving someone grace, it means I'm giving them room. I'm giving them the space. I'm allowing them to be who they are. I'm giving them grace.
Yeah.
And yet I couldn't do that for myself. Right. So bringing grace to the equation for me helped me. What if I did allow myself the grace, the room, the lack of judgment to be this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then another way that I think about grace is, the verb grace. When we say grace, when we give grace, we are giving gratitude. We are expressing gratitude and thanks. And often and I'm going to say, often what we're giving gratitude for, or we are expressing our gratitude when we say grace, it's not for only the things that are perfect. It's for the things that we're grateful for, even if they're messy or difficult. So I think that, giving myself grace gives me that, again, that I'm allowed to be messy and a work in progress. And I'm still grateful for that.
Wow, what a great place to let's begin our kind of exploration in how to settle into a sense of loving self-kindness. So beginning with just connecting with your breath in the moment. I think that oftentimes the opposite of loving self-kindness comes from our mind and from the messaging and the conditioning of our mind. And so the beginning of really learning how to settle into a space of loving self-kindness is to connect with your breath. So let's all do that just for a moment. A couple breaths in and out. And just noticing how you feel. We give ourselves good attention. With loving self-kindness, it's about attention. It's about literally giving yourself attention. Oftentimes, we're giving everybody else our attention. We're giving our work our attention. We're giving the computer our attention. But do you give yourself attention? And a beautiful place to connect with your attention is simply with connecting with your breath. How does your breath feel going in and going out? How do your shoulders feel? Can you soften them? I think of loving self-kindness as a practice of softening a lot. Do you, Laurel?
I do. Absolutely. And softening, brings back the judgment, right? Often we are harsh in our judgment. And how can we soften how we see ourselves, how we accept ourselves, how we live? Yeah.
So, giving yourself grace, right, and space to be messy, to be imperfect in this moment, feeling your breath, allowing yourself to soften physically in your body. I find that oftentimes the clients that I have that have the hardest time connecting below the head, below the neck, are ones that are very rigid also in their physical body. And so beginning to learn how to soften in your physical body is a beautiful aspect of loving self-kindness. So softening your shoulders, softening your throat, your jaw, your forehead, softening your belly. How many messages did you get, Laurel, growing up and throughout your life that said, it's really good for you to have a soft, round belly?
Never in my life. Not once.
Well, you're getting one from me today.
Thank you.
Let's count it as number one.
Thank you. and even beyond, your jaw, your shoulders, think about when we hold a writing utensil. If our listeners are still writing with a pen like I am, but right? Can you soften your grip? Can you soften your grip on the steering wheel? Can you soften your grip? Right? And so I think about the act of treating yourself with loving self-kindness and softening, right? Even when we're, when I think about, we get ready for our day, we rise to the occasion. We're ready for battle, right? We have our coat of armor on, right? All of those things. We hold our back straight and our shoulders high and our neck up, right? we're not really in that posture of loving self-kindness where we're outward facing, where I'll say I might approach my day like a warrior, ready for battle, right?
Mhm.
And how different that is, because then I come home at the end of my day and I think, oh, this is a time I want to be kind to myself and I want to feel good and I want, self-care. And it's really hard to make that transition. So if we can do that during the day,
Yes.
if even when I think about how can you take a light touch of your own fingertips, maybe on your forearm a couple times a day?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can you, tuck yourself in bed at night and give yourself a full hug?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. In order to teach your body what loving self-kindness begins to feel like when you can loosen your grip and soften.
Yeah. A great, of course, Tai Chi comes into my mind always because of my own practice and so many years studying. But I think about martial artists, when you see somebody who's a martial artist, right, their posture is awesome. They look really strong and really agile, but they're also very soft because that's part of the practice. You have to energetically be in touch and be able to move literally in a moment, right? So there has to be a lot of flexibility. And so as we speak about this idea of softening, right, is you can hold your form, but you can also be really soft and gentle and kind with yourself. And that's a beautiful metaphor for, even the boundaries in our life. We can have great boundaries, but we can also be full of loving self-kindness and loving kindness to other people and have really wonderful boundaries. Those two things do not have to be, separate, right? They can come together. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And it's not just the, flexibility and agility, but the opening, right? So
Right.
there's in martial arts, there's the softness of being open and to be able to be free in your movement.
Yeah.
So I what a great analogy that was. Thank you.
Yeah. So softening, as we're doing this together, I don't know if you're able to stay in that space, but softening your body, staying connected with your breath, having a sense of opening to create space and spaciousness for all that you are right in this moment, and also for all that is around you, right? And then you're able to meet that with a much softer sense and a more, shall we say, a more direct sense, right? Yeah. So being able to do that. And I think that, Laurel, I loved your example too of how we get up in the morning and we kind of put on our armor and we go out during the day and then we come home and we want to just take it all off, How can we make that less of a transition? How can it be more incorporated into your daily experience so that you don't feel like you have to put on your armor? And if you are putting on armor, you might want to think about what it is that you're protecting yourself from. So that would be, a journaling question. And as we kind of explore loving self-kindness, right?
Or what are you hiding from the world as you enter the world with your suit of armor?
Yeah, right, right. What are you hiding? What are you protecting yourself from? And how can you come into a space where that isn't necessary anymore? What inner work or what beautiful work is there for you to go into, to invite the transformation so that you don't have to feel that you're in that space anymore? Because that's certainly a possibility.
Yeah. And I think that comes with the practice of loving self-kindness, that as you individually become more self-aware and give yourself grace to be the messy, give yourself, allow yourself to soften, you can bring that into the world with more trust.
Yeah.
That is who you are, and the world has a place for you in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So a sense of trust that will come from somewhere deep inside you. It won't come from your head. Your head will want to analyze and will want to, let's say, quantify and compare and do all kinds of interesting things with data. And trust actually comes from a sense of an internal place inside where you feel you can rely on and count on to rest assured, right? That you can make a good decision, that you can come forth in the world and take the next right step. And if you don't take the next right step, it's okay. It was messy. You'll try again, right? And so the trust, a feeling of trust comes from deep inside your being, right? And so the more you can get connected to heart space, so as we're sitting and we're talking, you're listening, can you just bring your attention down to the area around your heart, right? Your chest, your upper back, middle of your back, inside that area, kind of imagining almost a space, a container where your heart resides, right? A chamber. You can think of it as almost a chamber that you can enter and commune in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that allowing yourself to, soften, even if it's just in the privacy of your own home, and tapping into your heart space and into your belly. Like it's hard for us to really tap into our heart or our intuition if we haven't yet learned to soften.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So I think that practice of bringing that awareness to what your heart wants. I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but sometimes I ask my heart, I put my hand on my heart and I ask my heart, what do I think about that? What, dear heart, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
Right? I do it with my belly, so that loving self-kindness comes from within.
Yeah. Right.
And we have to engage below the neck in order to get our body's wisdom, because we know our head and our nervous system's job is to keep us safe.
Right.
And the data sorting and the problem solving and all of those things, the reluctancy that we talked about early in this episode, right? Those are head survival techniques.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
yeah, getting connected with belly and heart. And I would say that if you have a hard time doing that, if you're trying to do that right now and you're like, I can't get there, I can't quite get there, right? Is see if you can just set your intention to regularly, 3-4 times a day, just for a minute. It doesn't have to be for long, that you start to bring your attention down to heart space, bring your attention down to belly. It helps to put your hands there, so you actually know where it is your attention is supposed to be going, right? Hands to belly, really bring and close your eyes. Close your eyes and get your attention inward and downward. And it is a practice. If you've been closed off from those parts of yourself and disconnected from those parts of yourself for long enough in order to keep yourself feeling safe, it's just going to take practice. It literally takes practice, doesn't it, Laurel?
It does. Yes.
Me.
Yes. Yeah. I have a journaling prompt that might be helpful as well.
Great.
So when I think about, loving self-kindness, when you think about other people or other living beings that you express kindness to, or you can't help think kind thoughts when you think of that person, maybe journaling, what are the attributes? What are the characteristics? Why do you have this, I'm going to say, loving kindness towards them? And you might need to do this with several people. And then begin to look at when and where you also have those same characteristics or attributes.
Yeah.
Because often we see our own, it's the critic, right, on one shoulder, right? And then we need to bring out the, inner mentor or champion who really does see the best in us. That's not first nature. So I bet that when we do this exercise, we will find we have many, if not all, of the characteristics and attributes that we admire in other people.
I love that. And while you're doing that exercise, I would expand that to when you're feeling the feeling of loving kindness towards that other person, pay attention to how it feels in your body.
Oh, yes.
If you can close your eyes and locate where are you feeling it in your body, because that will help you also be able to focus your attention down into that space, because that's where it is. It's not going to be in your head. Trust me. It's not going to be in your head.
So true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Well,
Laura, I think we should probably lovingly wrap up our podcast for today. I hope
agree.
that everybody went on the loving self-kindness journey with us. What do you feel like for you, if you had to say, what is the biggest benefit of loving self-kindness? What first comes into your mind?
It is the self-acceptance, right? It's I am far less critical and judgmental of myself. I can allow myself to be all that I am without the judgment of how I shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think mine is a peacefulness. Like I really relate to when I start to bring myself into that space. I'm just like a peacefulness descends over me that feels so comforting. And I have a feeling that, I mean, I go back to my beginning of my journey with meditation. And one of the reasons I think I stayed with it is I think I have kind of a low level, not a low level anxiety, but just kind of a more nervousy kind of, sense. And so to be able to like take myself out of that and bring it down into a more peaceful place feels so good,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. And I can sense that about you.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, our friends out there, I hope you are giving yourself the gift of loving self-kindness today. I hope you'll practice it throughout the month with us. We'll be back to talk more about it and some interesting twists and turns around loving self-kindness this month as we explore it in December.
I'm looking forward to every episode.
Me too. Me too. And I'm looking forward to sharing more and more details as we go forward about our retreat coming up next spring with our listeners and friends, to invite them to come and be with us in person, in the real person.
Yes. And talk about a gift of loving self-kindness.
There'll be plenty of that.
Give yourself the gift of being on a retreat with us.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Away we go.
Enjoy your day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye, listeners.